Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re Soha. Om Dare Du Dare.
So good to be with all of you and those of you online again. We are in this text about the foundations of Buddhist practice. How do we really engage in Buddhist practice? And we've worked our way through the Buddhist view, perspective. We went through sort of the qualities of a teacher, and we're at this section here about really the qualities of a student, which is not that sexy. It's just, not the cool karma stuff or the empty nature of everything. But I think it's very important. I think we had a pretty good discussion last week. But before I dive into that, I did want to check and see if there was any questions that had popped up from previous teachings. Rumor has it we may have one in the house.
So, and it's not necessarily related to teaching, but you always talk about like kind of testing and trying to make sense of this and seeing if it works. And so, there's close to 9 billion people on the planet. And from what I understand, as a human, we have the opportunity to see the Dharma.
Yeah, not all humans.
Not all humans, but if you're not a human, can you still receive the Dharma? Like in a monkey or a grasshopper?
Okay.
Hey, that's my first question. And then the second question is, if, from what I understand, is maybe tied into it, if through numerous rebirths, and we kind of move up the spiritual psychic evolution where we can practice this more and more, then would it be saying that humans are a little bit farther along than some of the other sentient beings, and there are 8 billion people on the planet, and not that long ago there were only hundreds of thousands of people. Has there been not much growth in terms of sentient beings moving towards this?
Yeah, so these are good questions. So just for everyone online, essentially it begins with, we're in humans, so some humans have what we call a rare and precious human birth. So those are 18 qualities, and very few humans actually have what we would call a rare and precious human birth, which is birth that has access to Dharma teachings. There's teachings and there is access. There's a lot of people in this world that have no access to these teachings, or around quality teachers. And then there's also, you could have access, but have absolutely no interest, right? I mean, there's a lot of people around this town, they're not sitting here tonight, even if they've kind of, heard about it. A lot of people never even heard about it. You can live in the United States, you can live down the street from the Dharma Center and not really know anything about Dharma. So there's these qualities that, you live in a space where you can have the freedom to practice. There is Dharma. You have an interest in the Dharma. And so you get pretty small human group. So that's one. And then
a lot more now than there were.
A lot more humans.
Well, a lot more people have the opportunity to receive this Dharma than 5,000 years ago.
Right.
500 years ago.
Yeah. So there are more rare and precious human births, probably as a number. Yeah. Now, your other question, sort of talking about, does everybody have access? Well, monkeys are not going to get much Dharma, and animals and so forth. So in Buddhism, we think about 6 realms of existence. So 6 realms. And the human realm there's a lower 3 and there's a higher 3. Humans would be the lower of the up. So the 3 upper would be the lowest. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's heaven and hell, and it's just not permanent. So somebody might be born in a hell realm. Now, whether we take that literally, like there are these fire and brimstone, or would somebody, for example, living currently in the Gaza Strip, be in a hell realm? I would say, yeah, that's pretty much a hell realm right now. And so humans can be in these realms, like God realm or hell realm. These sort of heavenly realms where, you just have everything, and it's very luxurious and not many problems and so forth. But in Buddhist cosmology, there's hell realms, there's hungry ghosts, there's animals, humans, and then we have these two upper sort of heavenly realms. And you would go after this body ends, your consciousness would start to see itself differently, right? It's not like a soul that gets moved. From a Buddhist perspective, our consciousness is this continuous stream, arising moment to moment. I'm not the same John I was yesterday, and I'm perceiving things. As this body dies, the consciousness starts perceiving itself more in a kind of a spirit form. Kind of, there's no body now, and it's seeing it in what we call sort of Bardo intermediate state. And so that's, again, another form. And then at some point, it starts seeing itself in some form of a body, maybe, or a spirit realm, or a human. It could be heavenly, could be an animal, could be a hell realm. And the thing about this to really get is it's not about the outer form, it's about the mind. I'm perceiving myself in human form. The only difference between myself and like a fully realized Buddha is my mind. I'm not in nirvana, is not some different place, right? We don't go somewhere else. We just start experiencing everything differently. And so understanding that aspect's pretty helpful. Basically, with Buddhism, it says the reason we're stuck here is because we identify me and mine with that which is not me and mine. And
so nirvana is not a place.
Nope. No. And so as the mind changes, this all changes. So having said that, going back to the idea about population and so forth, and where I think a lot of people get confused, there's not a set number in a sense of sentient beings. For example, I'm not sure how many millions of universes there are, in galaxies, somebody knows, some idea, but there's endless amounts, right? We're only on Earth, on one universe of one, sort of galaxy, and start to think about what's out there just in a physical sort of realm, let alone the idea of mental realms of experience as well. So it's not like there's this fixed Earth life. We can start seeing ourselves in a whole bunch of different ways. But in this current karma of Earth and human form, you're going to potentially, and I think this is where your question gets to, is a human birth, a rare and precious human birth, is the optimal birth for awakening. Because it doesn't have too much suffering, right? We're not just trying to survive every moment. We're not like an animal who can't have Dharma. We're not in a lot of pain and, sort of a hell realm, those kinds of things. We're not in that thing where we're just trying to survive and not be in pain. And in a heaven realm, you don't have enough suffering. Like, why would you change? Life's good. Life's very good. And this water I'm drinking would be radiant nectar. It's like, oh yeah. But in the human realm, you have a nice combination of enough suffering to where you start questioning, how do I not suffer? And enough what we call sort of leisure and opportunity to work with the Dharma. And so it's the right sort of combination in a human form. to where we have enough suffering that we're interested to look, and we have enough not suffering to have time and interest to alleviate the suffering. So in that sense, the human realm would be the optimum to do the work. And so the Buddha in his human form, who had, great life, saw the suffering, aging, sickness, death, and this rebirth cycle. And his big question is, do we have to suffer? Right? Do we have to suffer? Are we trapped in this cycle of birth, aging, sickness, death, birth? And so that was his journey. And ultimately, he left all the princely life and went out to all the ascetic things, did all those things. And essentially, he would find that it is unnecessary. We don't need to be even in a cycle of 6 realms. That this is all fundamentally based on a misunderstanding of ourselves. And he gave the methods to purify the mind to where we can kind of, as we'd say, wake up and know that you are much more than this body. How's that for framework?
Yeah, so it's like we can say kind of sort of like heaven on earth. It's just we don't realize it.
It's even beyond that. Heaven's not that good a spot.
Well, it's all here.
Yeah, and Earth's just a place in this bigger realm. So even that. So we see ourselves as human, in a human form, on a round, sort of round thing called Earth currently. But even all that's perception, because a cat and a mouse and a dog, they're not going to see this as Earth, right? Or even have a construct that we're going so many thousand miles an hour around something right now. Just doesn't seem like that.
So can I be, if I'm living a life that's working on these, I don't know, all these different numbers, 8, 16.
Oh yeah, we got lots of lists of numbers.
So if I'm, working on those, can I be, I will be completely unaware of it, but can I suppose that I will be reborn in human form again?
Okay, so to be born in a human form, there is a guaranteed path. And next week we'll talk all about it.
Guaranteed, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not really going to make you wait till next week. I just thought it'd be a cool cliffhanger. Come back next week. That's right. Like those series will always end on come back next week. Right. No, it's ethics. The cause for human rebirth is good ethics. So virtuous, So the 10 virtuous actions, body, speech, and mind. So that's all you gotta do is be good.
Same class, too, right?
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. So no lying, no stealing, all that stuff. Sexual misconduct, divisive speech. So there's 3 of the body, which is stealing, killing, sexual misconduct. 4 of speech, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and what we call sort of this idle gossip kind of speech. And then there's 3 of the mind, which is covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. And that wrong view at this base level is more of, not really understanding or seeing cause and effect. Like I can do what I want. There's not going to be this result kind of thing. But if you recognize your actions have results, then you got more of a right view. So those are the 10 non-virtues. And then the 10 virtues are the opposite. So instead of divisive speech that brings people together, instead of killing, how do we preserve life, help others, that kind of thing. So that's in the people who do the daily practice, we're guarding against those 10 non-virtues, and we're cultivating the 10 virtues. And it's the foundation of all spiritual growth. Pretty much in every spiritual tradition, it's going to be ethics. You know? And so, but that's the way you get at least another good human rebirth. You're welcome. Anybody else out there? Except Kurt. Yeah, we saw you leaning in. Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, again, as we approach and think about these things, as I emphasize all the time, you start where you're at, which is good. And we question, right? We question, Buddha's always saying, does this hold up? Does this make sense? And so things that seem unknowable, and we did that whole story. How do we approach the unknowable? And we start with the knowable, and then we explore. And then, but we don't ever, like, for example, I just said, Buddhism teaches 6 realms of existence. Might be true, might not, right? We don't know. And we don't know it just because it was said here. You don't just say, oh, there's 6 realms of existence. You say, oh, in Buddhism, they talk about 6 realms of existence. I'm curious if that holds up, if that makes sense. And, but how's that relevant to my life right now? Okay, well, if they said I have this optimum form right now in this human rebirth, that this is good right now in this condition, well, let's see if that's helpful, right? And if I'm in a right mind to start engaging in my life in a way that accords more with how things exist and engage in virtue, will that change my experience? So we just start there. And then we start comparing and go, wow, what's my human life compared to some others who are chasing a way of being happy, right? Chasing happiness in the car, the relationships, the house, the vacations, the, you know, like really hoping to get lucky a lot, you know, and that is going to actually remove my suffering and make me happy. So does that work? If you're sitting here, you probably realize that doesn't work, right? It's just this weird hamster wheel. That the very things I think will bring me happiness is the very things that create all my suffering. What do we stress and worry about the most? Relationships, the house, the job, the stuff. You know, the stuff that's going to make you really happy that you're stressed a lot about. So it's like, well, okay, that system doesn't seem to work. And that happiness that I get from my achievement lasts, I don't know, an hour, maybe more, maybe less. You might stay happy for a couple hours. Add a little alcohol, it might last a little longer. I don't know. And then that happiness is gone now. You know, now I've got the achievement. Now it's Tuesday. Now, you know, I got all this stuff to do and worry about and deal with. And then the stuff that we once were so thrilled about achieving, hey, we don't even think about that much. And then there's this new stuff, you know. And so you start thinking, does that make any sense? And then if I take a moment and go, wait a minute, I've actually done a lot of cool stuff. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to India. I've, you know, had a first date. You know, I've had nice dinners. You know, I've had a, you know, marriage a couple of times. You know, fun weddings. And you start thinking about all the things that you've done that were wonderful. And why would I be stressed or fearful or upset today? I've done all those things. And then my mind will tell me, but if this next thing happens, you know, then I'll be happy, right? Well, you know, get through this project. Yeah, then I'll be happy. I'll get this partner, then I'll be happy. Or I'll move to Carbondale, then I'll be happy. And I moved to Carbondale, it's a nice place. How long does the happiness last? I've actually heard people tell me, man, it's so busy in Carbondale. I had somebody tell me that the other day. Couldn't live in Carbondale, too busy. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I'm from LA. And, so, where's the happiness? And then we say, man, Carbondale's not like it used to be. It's very busy. Okay, so where's the cause of happiness and where's the cause of my suffering? And maybe it's in the belief system that something conditional outside of myself could actually make me happy, in a sustainable way. Maybe my happiness is actually coming from virtue and from, feeling good about what I'm doing, not, things that make me feel good. Well, maybe that's more accurate. Then you get in a pretty straightforward Buddhist thought process, which is not unlike Aristotle, that all happiness and good comes from virtue. Sounds a lot like Aristotle. And that all, suffering comes from non-virtue. So now I got a baseline and I can start checking something out. If I engage in virtue and avoid non-virtue, do I find a greater sense of well-being? Am I more resilient? How do I experience things? If I do something to feel good, but it kind of is a little shady, I had to lie to somebody, how do I feel about that? So, we start working with it and we go, okay, well, let me test some of this out. And then we start testing other things like, is that person the cause of my resentment? Right? That man, what they did to me? And is that possibly person actually the cause of my resentment? It sure feels like it every time I think about it. On the surface, it seems reasonable. And then you look at it a little more deeply and you go, resentment's kind of a mental, emotional state. That person I'm resentful at, they may not even be alive anymore. So I'm pretty sure they can't be causing this. As a matter of fact, that person I'm resentful at doesn't even exist. What they did 10 years ago, they're a different person. They're totally different than they were if they're alive. But my resentment has frozen someone in time. And they exist where? Only in my mind. So I'm resentful at a person I have in my mind who doesn't exist physically out there. And I've been getting pissed off at them instead of maybe working with this idea of forgiveness and letting go of suffering. Maybe that's more accurate? I don't know. We investigate. And so there's a lot of things on the surface that seem totally normal until you look at them. For example, we're on a round thing going how fast around the sun, which totally does not look like it. There's a whole flat earth society still. And so Buddhism saying, well, let's look a little more deeply, right? So some things that sound outrageous, I find this fascinating to me. You're getting me on a whole tangent. We'll never get to the topic. Like some people think pretty weird stuff, let's say, about, just some of, whether it's Buddhist myths or Hindu myths, the stories and, like, how could you possibly think, that happened? And then you read the Bible and totally that happened, and totally it happened because, well, I grew up in it. That's what everybody's talking about. You go to a culture with rebirth. Well, of course, rebirth is like a total given, I mean, of course. And then some of that weird stuff you guys have, Moses, those animals and 2 animals, Noah and the ark. Come on, really? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. How can you get all 2 of those on the thing? and so, we have all these things that kind of make sense just because we never really looked at it. We were raised in a particular culture. And then we have these other things that seem totally outrageous, like how weird is that? How many gods you got? And but likewise, we live habitually in such a way we don't question very simple things like that person is annoying. Well, that's impossible. But we say it all the time. I am experiencing annoyance because of how I'm relating to this person. And fundamentally, I think they should be different than they are, as if I know how people should be. That might be a little more how it's working, right? So think about how we live in the world in this sort of autopilot, not even questioning my thoughts, my feelings, where things are causing my emotions. And what I find really fascinating is most of what we can find in just ethics, Buddhism, values, so forth, is also in Western culture, basic teachings, You'll see these good morals in old movies and even in young, movies for kids, and good morals and good teachings. My teacher, my Little League coach, I say it all the time. He taught me it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. That's kind of the same thing. Winning or losing is not going to make me happy. How I play the game is going to make me happy, right? As far as self-worth and value. So we actually have all this stuff around us, but it is completely overlooked in just the culture that we actually live in. You lose the Super Bowl, you're a loser. You're not the second best team in all of football, right? Pretty weird. Yeah, Buffalo Bills lost it 3 years in a row, man. Pretty horrible. 4. Thanks, Sam. New Yorker. Yeah, buddy. How did that feel? 4 times. Wow. And they didn't celebrate going to the Super Bowl 4 times. Well, they did celebrate until they lost. But who's the little short guy who was the quarterback? I really liked him. Yeah, he'll come back maybe.
Doug Flutie.
Flutie. Yeah. Thank you, Doug Flutie. Yeah. So start seeing how our culture has this whole other thing that, this perfume, I love those commercials. It's amazing what a perfume will do for your life. It's fascinating. And, and if, this thing, or this job or this, and it's so interesting how the actual what's promoted within our culture is all about suffering, but in our growing up and the ways that the good lessons we were taught actually promotes well-being. It's weird. I have a friend of mine. Yeah, I got more than one. And he's got this big struggle. He's someone who had a career, nice career. And anyway, that kind of fell apart. And then he went through a whole year of not being able to find a job, where he's looking for. And but in the meantime, went on a whole spiritual journey, and I got to know him. We got to be good friends. And it was tough. He had to move, lost some things, taking care of his family, trying to figure things out. But he was gradually getting more and more recognizing, I really want to do something meaningful in my life. I want a job that's meaningful. And anyway, got another job. Everything was good for a while, but that again didn't work out as far. And where I want to get to is that he went through years in a career, and at the end of all of this, he's landed a job that he likes. makes a difference in the world, feels good about, it's less than what he used to make, right? But he's pretty happy, likes going to work. It's a good thing. And it's still significantly more than I make, I'll tell you that. But that's not a lot. So anyway, most people would be pretty good. And we've had this talk, like, do I take that job, not take that job? I'm not telling anybody to take a job or not, but what he caught was the cycle that if I make this much money, that's what I'm worth, right? In other words, how much do you need to make to be real unhappy? Because I said, how long have you been doing this? Well, 20 years. Has it ever worked out? Even at the top of your thing. I had all that, but I've never been really happy, with that. And so anyway, so now he's in this job where it's still pretty good salary. And this other job offered him another, 100,000 more a year, right? And he's being pressured to take it. It's kind of like, how much do you need me to make to be really unhappy? And yeah, that makes sense to a lot of people that, you're undervalued. You could be a lot unhappier if you made this. It's fascinating. And so we get caught up in these mental things that just don't really work when you step back for a moment. So Buddhism is really saying, well, let's get to the truth. It says fundamentally, the way you wake up is wisdom, just knowing who you are, basically, and seeing how things work. And so you unravel the sort of autopilot mentality things, we keep trying to find stability in instability. That's weird, build a house on quicksand. Who saw the pandemic coming? Right? This world's changing, the world's messy, and Buddhism from the very gate mentions this experience is going to be full of all kinds of suffering. It's its very nature, right? There's going to be discontent, stress, struggles, worries. That's the very nature. You're going to get old, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. And how much of our life is trying to not do any of those things? When I'm talking about a no-win situation, there's whole videos on anti-aging. And there's some guy who thinks he's actually going to go in the other direction. It's interesting YouTube. But what if we just, okay, I recognize I'm in a human form. I'm going to age. I'm going to have some illness. I'm going to have some struggles. Sometimes things aren't going to go my way. Sometimes they are. And not believe that if they go my way a whole bunch of times, I'm going to be happy. Because that's kind of the thing. Maybe I won't age as quickly as others. Maybe this won't happen. Maybe that, whatever. Which actually creates a whole cycle of stress and worry to not have the things that are inevitable happen. It's kind of insane. But it's how we live daily. And we don't question it. So the Buddha was saying, well, let's question that. And then you start understanding, most of my suffering is coming from not wanting things to be the way they are. But why don't I just start recognizing things are this way? And given this way, what's the best way to live? Well, I might be a little more productive. What's in my sphere of influence, and what are real causes of happiness and real causes of suffering? And what if I lived in a way that I felt better about, that was more virtuous? And whether it's that much more money or less money, nothing wrong with making a lot of money. Just like what you're doing, and have it be meaningful in a way that's productive, right? And so this is how we test, question, engage. Because some things, it's funny. So if I explain something like the 6 realms of existence, which may sound very foreign, the way most of us are living our life is just insane. So it's like, well, it might be an interesting thing to explore. This sounds pretty weird, but how I live my life is not in accordance with reality very often. So maybe that works or maybe it doesn't work, but you don't ever accept it just because it's written. You just go, who knows? Maybe that's the way it works. What does work? What can I test? What can I start doing now? And then engage in that. Could I be a little more present? Watch my mind a little more, not be a prisoner of all my impulses. Make a choice that I'll feel good about tomorrow. And engage in life, cultivating virtue and well-being and avoid non-virtue. I was kind of on a roll.
I know.
Yeah.
But I want to follow you.
Okay.
So these 6 realms of existence, are they all like happening like simultaneously? I mean, are there some people or sentient beings that I run into on a daily basis that are at another level of existence?
It could be, yeah. 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 You could be a Buddha and I wouldn't know it. Yeah. You're helping me right now. You're guiding me. And so, yeah, there's could be the server at your restaurant could be a Buddha. They got stories.
Or they could be like the Mate's realm of the hungry ghost.
Hungry ghosts a little different, but some hungry ghosts are, people who can't ever have their desires quenched, right? So you could kind of work with some humans that might be in that realm, right? They're never satisfied, they're hungered. So in a hungry ghost, they're actual sort of like food that can never be quenched. And there's kind of this thing about a skinny throat and so forth. But there are people, think about, who can never be satisfied even for a moment in their life. And that would be kind of hungry ghosts, right? Can never be satisfied, can never be, even for a moment. And you can look at some people in this world where they can, constantly be craving like power, this or that or this thing, and never be, even for a moment. That could be. So David Gonzalez's aunt is a Buddha. Yeah. You have to read the book. Yeah.
That's funny. I tried to find the book. I couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh.
In the library.
There's one, his own publishing company, has that book. You get through. Yeah.
Ropa, see if they had it.
No, it's going to be obscure. Yeah. Traceless Memories, is that it? Yeah. So anyway. So yeah, so all those things could be. Looks like we're just on discussion time. So any other people out there in here that I've always wanted to ask a Buddhist question? Okay, well, let's dabble just a bit in. So in the text, it's like, how do you be, this qualified student? And last week we talked about these 3 qualities. Intelligence in the way of not academic intelligence, but with discernment, that you will question things, that you will investigate. You don't take things on face value, including the teachings. That you can discern, that you can kind of evaluate, check things out. The second one was this open-mindedness, right? This exploratory, So for example, something seems like it doesn't make sense. Well, then set it aside, but you don't say it isn't true, right? How would I know if it isn't true? Unless I've investigated. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I only am taking the word for it that we're on this round thing going so many thousand miles an hour. I mean, I don't know. I never really checked. I held the speedometer up, but it didn't register. So I don't have the tools to check that, but I'm taking the word of scientists who kind of can explain this and go, okay, I think we're on a round thing, and gravity's holding me to it, and we're going, really fast right now. Even though it doesn't seem like it. So we need to kind of check things out and research and check the information. Be open to that. But discernment, and not just say because it's in a book. I guess I kind of did that though with the whole earth thing. So I don't think I've done my due diligence that we're going that fast. Anybody in here? We're just taking a word for it. Okay. Wow. Maybe it is flat. Who knows? We gotta go check this out.
I think the Coriolis effect and the fact that the water spins around related to like storms spin in a certain direction in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, I think that
Yeah, toilet flush is different in Australia than here. Yeah.
You can test this.
Yeah. Well, we're all going to Australia tomorrow. Let's see. So this intelligence, this open mind, and then this interest to put it into practice. So these are these three main qualities. And then since I feel like I should touch the text here, that's a tough word. I would like to. So even if students are open-minded, intelligent, if they do not practice, they will not progress. Therefore, interest, diligence, eagerness, and commitment to engage in the practice are essential for spiritual transformation. So those are the three main qualities. So for example, meditation. We're told that if I practice shamatha meditation, I can develop my attention to a degree where I'm not going to be a prisoner of all my thoughts. That I can hold my attention, not lose the object I'm attending to, and not get distracted. And now that might be true or it might not be true. You're only going to find out by practicing shamatha, and you might find that, wow, you can actually do that. And you can even choose one thought over another. Whatever pops into your mind isn't what I have to jump into. No, I think I'll be here. And so, but we're not going to know that for sure until we practice on a regular basis. And we can have that capacity. We can, of course, check with others who have done it, but that's not going to help our mind. The fact that I've got a good friend who's chief shamatha is not going to help my mind at all. Matter of fact, I might be bummed out. Yeah, they can do that. I can't. So then they were talking about these two other qualities. And again, this is not the sexy stuff, but it is important, I believe. Because if we understand this way of approaching teachings and teachers, we're not going to get in a lot of trouble. People get in a lot of trouble. So two more qualities of a suitable disciple, Laura wants to make sure I pronounce that properly, are often added to these three. Did that work? There was good. Okay, good. The first, respect and veneration towards the teacher and the teaching makes us a receptive vessel to receive the Dharma, whereas arrogance and apathy prevent spiritual growth. So does that mean, just because I'm sitting here, you give me respect? No, it does not mean that. It means, I've checked this out. I'm open-minded and I'm finding quality teachers and teachings that I could learn from, that I would have some respect for. It's like a professor in a class. If I don't have much respect for him, I'm not going to learn too much. Matter of fact, we might have been in classes where we think we know more than the teacher. I mean, I'm sure none of you have been like that, but I may have. And I'm not learning very much, right? So you want to put yourself in a good situation where that can develop. And that, we've talked about that, the qualities of a teacher that's ethical and has some training and can subdue at least some of those afflictions. Then we're going to be much better. But the biggest obstacle to learning is presumption of knowledge. So that's going to be a block. Appreciating our teacher's wisdom and kindness and respecting the excellent qualities of the teachings moistens our minds. I like that. Making it receptive to the Buddha Dharma. So, I can just tell you, and this develops, with my teacher, when he talked, I was listening, my current teacher, I'm listening, I'll sit at their feet, because I've checked them out. I've spent a great deal of time with them. I've seen their qualities, and, I'm willing to try and do some things, and we're willing to do that. And attentively taking the teacher's advice and instructions to heart by putting them into practice enables us to plumb the depth of the teachings and integrate them into our very being. Do not think that these instructions must be given one-on-one. That's a common mistake. Even when we are in the audience of 1,000 people, our mentor's spiritual instructions remain the key to actualizing the path. So, for example, a lot of people want that one-on-one. You can watch a YouTube of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and take those teachings to heart, and if you have that relationship. I once watched a former monk. His Holiness was teaching, and we're in this huge auditorium, and as monks, I was a monk back then, they let us in because we were monks, we didn't pay. But we're in the back, we had to stand. Making monks stand, that just didn't sound right. But anyway, this one monk in the back stood like this on His Holiness that whole time, didn't flinch for like an hour and a half, and was hanging on every single word. I mean, the devotion was overwhelming. I was touched, I couldn't do that. And, I love the Dalai Lama, but you could just see that. And we were in a crowded, auditorium, full house, and he's in the back, and he didn't, just hour and a half, wow. So, one could develop, but that was developed over time, right? Again. So if we get that, imagine, how we can receive teachings. But where I want to get to is people who sincerely wish to attain liberation or full awakening will cultivate these qualities in order to become receptive disciples and increase the benefit they receive from listening to teachings. In doing so, they become more self-confident and responsible for their Dharma practice. So with this clear understanding, we're able to really receive these. And where I really want to get to is right here. We'll be capable of receiving teachings, empowerments from various spiritual mentors and lineages without becoming either confused or sectarian, not falling into mistaken ideas of surrendering everything to the guru. They will not be led astray by teachers with impure motivations. And so that's kind of where I wanted to get to, is there's a responsibility in being a student, and that is, don't give up your power. Don't, it's right here. I said that. And and we don't check. So we're responsible for our journey, for our path, for choices. So we don't surrender, all this without evidence, without practice, without testing, and then that kind of faith and that devotion arises based on something legitimate and from really checking the qualities of that teacher, and we did a whole thing on that. Is that teacher, are they ethical? How are they acting with everybody? Are they, really nice to the big donors? Are they nice to people who don't? How are they? What's their behavior like when no one's, really looking, or, do they get angry and yelling? You just start noticing these things. And then you start saying, well, okay, here's a teacher. And as I mentioned, current teacher I did 5 years with before I asked him to be my teacher, and just check that out. So we want to be where we're at. And if we're curious, we're just curious. If we see things make sense, then we put them into practice. And if we have this rare and precious human birth, we're already in this path. And it's pretty rare to have these qualities all come together. I mean, if you're sitting here, that's pretty rare. And then we have this direction. So, okay, let's train the mind. Let's engage in virtue. So the fundamentals are pretty simple: ethics, concentration, and wisdom. 3 higher trainings. Or ethics, concentration, where the mind is tamed. I'm not a prisoner of it. So I can be mindful. And then start really understanding myself and my experience more accurately. And I always go for accuracy. What's true? What can I know? And then as that unravels, we'll start recognizing that there are no annoying people in the world. But then you might be annoyed less, which is kind of cool, because if you start trying to avoid annoying people, you're still going to be annoyed a lot. But if I recognize I'm having an annoying experience, well, maybe I've got something to work with. Why am I annoyed? Is that person all that bad, or am I judgmental, or what's going on? Or, now I got something. I might limit my annoyance. I might be a little judgmental. Could be, and yet I'm pointing at them.
Dumb and Dumber.
I have not seen Dumb and Dumber, but I hear
They do some stuff that's really annoying. In fact, it's probably some of the most annoying thing that they can do, but I won't.
so you want to challenge the evidence to that.
I'd counter that argument.
Yeah.
I'd say it's the best movie in the world.
There we go. Some people find this person annoying. Some people find them funny as heck. Where's the annoying and where's the fun? Yeah. Then you go, oh, okay. Somebody likes that. Made a lot of money. I didn't have like a Dumb and Dumber 2 maybe, but it was part of it was filmed in Breckenridge. Oh, okay. All right. So I wanted to at least tap into that piece of as we engage in Dharma, let's just be where we're at. Let's have good questions. Part of the, if I go a little further, it says, if I don't understand, ask questions. And then put it into practice. That's how we know that we put into practice. So there's lots of things we can't know until we put into practice. But you're not going to practice very well if it doesn't kind of seem like it's worth the effort. So we want to approach it that way. And then things that we don't know, we just set aside. I don't know. Don't know. And we'll see what it plays out. All right, anybody else out there with a thought, question, curiosity before we wrap up? Wow, pretty sure I just told you I'll ask questions. Okay. You don't need to make them up. Trying to remember, there's something else I was going to do. No, I'll just end it there. So next week, then we will pick up. Might be a little wrap up on this, but then we're moving into meditation and how you structure a meditation practice. So we'll move to that part of the text. And if you're new, it's foundations of Buddhist practice. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have cultivated. Let me pop that up. Those who'd care to. Always when we do our prayers at the start or ending, it's, if you'd care to. Typically at the start, we kind of set a motivation. At the end, we dedicate all this time, energy, and everything for the benefit of all others and for our own continued spiritual growth. So those who care to, no obligation. All right. So just taking a moment to recognize that a great deal of merit has arisen from our time together and a great deal of merit throughout our lifetimes. I invite you to dedicate all of this merit from our collective time together and throughout our lives. Dedicate it for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings ultimately be free of suffering. And dedicate it also for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may have the seeds of compassion and wisdom ripen within us to liberate us from any misperception that limits our ability to recognize our own Buddha nature. If you care to, you can join in the dedication. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om